Alright, so in today's video we're going to be putting the 5070 Ti versus the RX 9070 XT in Stellar Blade, and today we're pairing it with the 7800 X3D running stock, and then also 32GB of DDR5 6000 megatransfers per second CL30 memory. And here you can see that on the right the 5070 Ti is actually quite a bit faster than the 9070 XT, and I tried to rerun the test just to make sure that there's no issue from my side. It's the same results. And then I also thought, okay, maybe it might be DLSS or FSR related, so I just did a quick test here with TAA. And you can see even with TAA the 5070 Ti is quite a bit faster, although the performance hit with FSR4 is bigger than the performance hit with DLSS 4. So another sanity check that I just made was just having a look at my good friend TerraWare's channel, where he tested the 9060 XT versus the 5060, and the 9060 XT is actually quite a bit faster than the 5060 in general, but over here the 5060 is around 15% faster than the 9060 XT. So in this game the Nvidia GPUs do perform quite a bit better than the AMD counterparts. Alright, so then if we just drop the preset down to the high preset instead of the very high preset, here you can see that the 9070 XT is getting around 130-ish frames per second, where the 5070 Ti is getting 165, 170 frames per second here. Both are with DLSS and FSR4, right? I did enable FSR4 in Adrenaline. I'm using the 25.6.1 driver, and then the game natively supports DLSS 4 transformer model, right? So that's basically the settings that we are using here. And I have to just point out, I do have a slight overclock on the 5070 Ti, and then I've got a slight undervolt on the 9070 XT as per popular request. Now the undervolt gets me around 6% in performance, and then the overclock on the 5070 Ti gets me around 10%, right? So just deduct 6% of the 9070 XT and 10% from the 5070 Ti and you get the stock performance here. But both of these GPUs are getting you a very, very high refresh rate experience here. Now we're running with the upscaling quality, because the performance gains you see going from very high to high, it's basically non-existent, right? You see a much bigger gain when just using FSR or DLSS quality, and both still look fantastic. So if you are looking for a higher refresh rate experience, then just use DLSS, right? DLSS 4 and FSR 4 both look very, very good here. Alright, so then if we start enabling frame generation on the 5070 Ti, I do not have the lows because the MSI Afterburner cannot display the lows properly when using DLSS frame generation due to the new flip chain model, right? So it does not report that accurately, so I don't have the lows displayed here. But typically FSR frame generation is a little bit faster than DLSS frame generation in most games, and over here once again the 5070 Ti is a little bit ahead. Now I just want to make it quite clear that these videos aren't necessarily meant as a direct versus comparison, right? I know that my titles say versus, but it's basically just to show you two GPUs performance in a single video. Like, I hate it when people use this for fanboy warring, right? I just want to share the performance of both GPUs. Now, yeah, we have 4x MFG enabled on the 5070 Ti, and I do have the latency numbers in the top right hand corner. You can see it's around 22 milliseconds of PC latency. That's very low. It's actually not much higher than when we don't have frame generation enabled. It's around 19 milliseconds without any frame generation enabled, so a very, very minimal impact there. Now at 4K, once again DLSS 4 FSR 4 native on the very high preset here. The 9070 XT is once again a bit behind, but both are giving you an average of above 60 frames per second here. Just note that the frame time graph is a little bit weird on the 9070 XT side. I'm not entirely sure what that is. I tested 25.6.1 and 25.6.2 and it happens on both. It really doesn't affect the game itself. Like, the game still feels perfectly smooth. Now I just wanted to have a look at 4K native TAA results here as well, just to make sure DLSS and FSR is not the reason why we are seeing those big differences. And here you can see 5070 Ti is doing about 100 and the 9070 XT is doing about 70. Now, I did not do full benchmark runs with TLAA. It was just to give an idea, right? Because I do think people will typically use FSR4 and DLSS 4 with these games if they support both. Now, just look at the frame time graph again with the 9070 XT. As I said, this happens from time to time. Doesn't really impact the experience. I don't notice it when playing the game, so I'm not sure if it's just a reporting issue with the driver and MSI Afterburner. Not entirely sure what's going on there. It sometimes happened to a much lesser degree on the Nvidia side as well, but not as often, and also not as extreme. Like that would indicate unplayable territory, but it really does not affect the experience that much. Now, again, during the previous test, there was very little scaling between very high and high, even at 4K. So we're back at very high this time, just with the quality upscaling. And you can see that the 9070 XT is good for about 100 frames per second, and the 5070 Ti is good for about 140 frames per second. Like, it's actually quite a big margin, the difference, and it actually does, it's more at 4K than at 1440p. I think it's because we are more GPU bound, and I know that the game is an Unreal Engine 4 game and it supports Nvidia Hairworks, but this is actually a much bigger difference than I anticipated. Now, if we kick on frame generation here, once again 2x frame generation, because the FSR frame generation is only 2x, right? We see that it's a very good experience still. Latency, unfortunately, I recorded it in the top right hand corner, right, but I forgot it's going to be cut off if I crop. Anyway, the latency here was around 19 milliseconds, again 19 to 21 milliseconds, same as at native, right? Frame generation really does not impact the latency that much here in this game when you start enabling it. Even with 4x MFG, you can see that the PC latency being reported here is below 30 milliseconds, and it's more than playable. There's very little artifacting that I could notice with the DLSS 4 especially, and sure, there is some popping, but that's not DLSS related. The crosshair is stable. There's really no halo ghosting around Eve either. I think the last few games that I tested with MFG have been pretty good. Doom, The Dark Ages, the best of them all, but the other games haven't been bad either. Now, if we just drop this down to FSR performance to see what the highest frame rate is we can get at an upscaled 4K image, you can see that the 9070 XT is good for around 120 frames per second, which is perfectly fine for a 4K 120Hz monitor. And then the 5070 Ti is good for 164. Now, I mean, at the end of the run, it'll be like 165 versus 125 kind of thing, right? But the lows are a little bit better on the Nvidia side as well. And I just think that this game favors Nvidia quite a bit. I'm not entirely sure why, because apparently Hairworks does not impact the performance that much anymore. But over here, it seems to be making quite a bit of a difference. Now, if we kick on frame generation again, both of these GPUs get you over 200 frames per second in the specific spot. I know it's a boring spot to test, but the game is very difficult to line up perfectly, because as you progress, there's a lot of encounters, that kind of thing, and I just wanted to keep things uniform to make it a bit easier to compare. Now, we got around 240 frames per second on the 5070 Ti, and then around 207 on the 9070 XT. So again, if we kick on 4 times MFG, this is going to be the end of the video. The last run, I just wanted to show you what the 4x MFG here looks like. And with the DLSS 4 performance, 4x MFG, we're getting almost 400 frames per second here. I know it's 400 frames per second of motion fluidity. It's not actual performance, right? But it does feel pretty good, and you can see the PC latency there is around 26-27 milliseconds. So definitely a very good experience, even during slight combat. Don't judge me, I do suck at this game, I already refunded. But this is the full game and not the demo, because I wanted to give you an idea what the performance is like. Alright, that's going to be the end of this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and as always, we hope to see you in the next one.